What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and in this video, I'll be teaching you everything you need to know to easily solo flawless the new Sundered Doctrine dungeon. This is a really fun and unique dungeon, and I've been living in it since Saturday, testing tons of strategies to come up with the most foolproof way to get an easy solo flawless clear. Some of the strats may not be the quickest, but they are extremely safe, and if you follow this guide, I'm confident you'll be able to get this pretty mid solo flawless emblem. I did a lot of this testing live while on stream, so if you want a first-hand look at the builds and ideas I'm cooking up, come by my Twitch and say hi. I also stream on YouTube, so you can watch there if you prefer. So you've probably seen most solo flawless runs so far on Titan, and that's for good reason. But I have soloed this dungeon on all characters, with the exception of the Shrieker boss on Hunter, with reasons I will touch on when we get to that part of the video. But with that being said, this dungeon is very doable on all three classes with the strategies that I will teach, so no need to fear. These tips and tricks will make this solo flawless dungeon about as easy as it can be. And in all honesty, this isn't too bad of a solo flawless as long as you're patient. But before we get into it, I want to tell you about a game that I've been playing for some time now. You know me, and you know I like build crafting, and Raid Shadow Legends has a ton of in-depth strategy, but instead of making one build, you make a team that synergizes well together. For a starter hero, I love Kale because he is a spellcaster and can do poison damage, and you guys know I love my Necrotic Grip build. And right now, new players can get 2 epic champions in Drake and TALLIA as soon as they sign up through my link in the description or the QR code on screen, which will really help you roll through enemies right away. And you can also unlock Sun Wukong with the promo code Monkey King. Much like Destiny, the game can be a bit daunting at first as it's been out since 2018, which is almost as long as Destiny 2. So the bonus champions you get for signing up really help in the early game. But the plus side to it being out so long is there is a ton of content in this game, and what I personally really like about it is you can play it on the go, on the bus or the train, or like me recently while waiting at the airport. The graphics are great and the gameplay is simple to use on a phone. And Raid is currently running a special global event called Alice's Adventure with some cool and unique champions. You can unlock 5 legendary Alice in Wonderland themed champions, including Alice the Wanderer, the Cheshire Cat, the Mad Hatter, Knave of Hearts, and the Queen of Hearts. And if you conquer the event dungeon, you can also get the exclusive Pinpoint gear set, which is only available until March 5th. What's really awesome is you can get Alice completely free just for logging into Raid for 7 days. So if you've been on the fence about trying out this game, now's the perfect time, honestly. And like I said, if you scan the QR code on screen or use my link in the description, then you will get 2 epic champions in Drake and TALLIA to start, and it also helps me out. So it's truly a win-win. And when you sign up, you can also join my in-game clan, Tizzle's Beauties. Thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring the video, and now let's get back to the dungeon guide to help you get this solo flawless emblem. So before we really get going, I must always give this disclaimer in all my solo flawless guides, and that is to practice each encounter a few times before you attempt to solo flawless. This will help you discover which strategy is best for you. What works for one player does not work for all players. Most people who have soloed on a Warlock that I've seen use the Bleakwatcher Getaway Artist build, and that's a very solid strat. But for me, I prefer Lightning Surge over Bleakwatchers in this dungeon, especially since it was recently buffed. So I chose what is best for my playstyle. Also, I tested a ton of different damage strategies, and I may briefly mention them when we get to the boss encounters, but for the most part, I will just be recommending what is meta, as I want this guide to help you do this in the shortest time possible, as it's already a long solo flawless. For context, my run was 90 minutes long. So while many damage strats can work well or seem good on paper, they may be hard to execute in practice. Again, I will be focusing on simplicity and effectiveness. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let's officially get started. We start with the opening traversal, which is quite short, and I highly recommend an eager edge sword and bonus points if you have a way to make yourself amplified. Amplified provides DR and it makes enemies less accurate when they shoot at you, so you can just breeze by all the enemies with ease. There's no need to fight them. Your solo flawless may take you numerous attempts, so it's nice to just rip to the opening encounter as fast as possible. Once we get to the first encounter, I have some really helpful tips and tricks. The first is if you read the wheel at the start of the encounter, you can predict what the symbol will be. In my example on my solo flawless, I had blank kills witness, so that answer is guardian. So rather than running around trying to find the truth teller bat to give me the symbol, I simply head to the 4 rooms and check their symbols. Once I find guardian, I know where to send the beam of light to. This is only a guarantee on the first rotation, as the second rotation has 2 missing symbols and the third is missing all 3, so you will need to find the bats for those. One thing I hate about this is it's unpredictable, which needlessly drags out this encounter. You don't know what the symbols are for each room, so you have to run around each rotation and find out, and I just find it really annoying. I will talk about this more in a video giving my thoughts on the dungeon, but for now, let's talk about how to best optimize this encounter so you don't have to spend 20 plus minutes getting through this slog fest. So my first tip is to run Parasite with a Solar Holster mod. You're killing tons of trash mobs in this encounter, so you'll build up Worm's Hunger times 20 fairly easily, and then you can one-shot the subjugators with the Worm. Parasite also has a ton of ammo, so it's super ammo efficient. Then you can run literally whatever else you want for your other weapons, but I do recommend something Strand or Stasis in your top slot so that you can build Transcendence quickly. Which brings me to my loadout suggestions. I use Necrotic Grip on Prismatic Warlock with Lightning Surge, Point Contact Cannon Brace on Prismatic Titan with Thunderclap, and Gifted Conviction on Prismatic Hunter with Ascension. Your build is quite important here. You need something that can take out groups of adds very quickly. The attendants will slow you and the weavers will pull you, and it can be game over in a hurry. Also, the husks swarm you, so having an instant delete button is great, and all these builds allow that. And then, like I said, you have Parasite for the big guys. You also could run an Eager Edge Sword if you're looking to do the encounter quicker, and then you could use Choir of One or some hard-hitting special like Merciless, but this guide is more focused on the safest strats rather than the quickest. That being said, the Worm from Parasite can deal damage to you if you're too close to it, so just watch out for that. But speaking of speeding things up, let's talk about how you can speed up this encounter greatly. I mentioned if you know the lore that you can guess the code, and that helps a lot, but if you get the code wrong, a Tormentor will appear. So the next thing you need to know is the optimal pathing for the lenses. The creator above recently put out a great dungeon guide, and you can check his out for an in-depth description of all the optimal pathing. But for me, I'll just include a couple of the maps that were made by an amazing person named Kenshi. Shout out to them. One map shows all the possible paths, and then the other shows the optimal paths for each room. You have 4 rooms, R1, R2, L1, and L2. R1 takes a minimum of 3 lenses, but the other 3 can be done in as little as 2. This is really important to know. I still suck at knowing each pathway, so I have the maps on the screen next to me while I play, but with repetition and practice, these lens placements will become second nature. The other key thing to know is what the fixed lenses in the center of the room can go to. The right side lens can only go to R1 or R2. They cannot go to the left side. This actually cost me in a run, and I just restarted rather than figuring out how to fix it. The long and short of it is, if you have a right side room first, always use the right side lens. This is really only important on the third phase, as this is when we have to use all 3 middle lenses, but this is crucial information so you don't get unlucky like I did. The middle lens can go to all but R1, and the left lens can hit all 4 rooms. So always save the left lens for last, trust me. So we have talked about lens placement, optimal builds, and weapons. So the last thing is really just execution. On the third phase, I like to scout all the rooms ahead of time and write them down so I know which room is which. But that isn't needed on the first 2 phases. So after some long and boring running back and forth, if you can keep your concentration on this boring as fuck encounter, you'll be on to the next part. My advice for this traversal is don't even go for the hidden chest on your solo flawless. Simply follow the path that I take in the maze so you don't get lost. You want to hug left for a long portion of the maze, and then you will drop down into a clearing. Take your first right down a path and locate a red light, jump up the stairs, and then do a couple of left turns, and then drop down and you are through the maze. From here, again, just sprint by everything with your Eager Edge sword and use Amplified if you can get it, but just be careful that if you do use Eager Edge, it can lock onto targets pretty far away, and you don't want it to pull you into the bats and you fall to your death. So just be smart. You could also plink away at the enemies if you want, but I have ran past them numerous times and never had any issue. When you drop down the hole, try to jump at the end so you hit your head and don't go sliding to your death. Next we have the spike balls. Jump in the nooks on the side and then go down the hole. Again, Eager Edge can help speed this up a bit, but just be patient. Then just wait on the other balls to cross your path and proceed with caution. No sense taking a dumb death here. At the next part, just be wary of the ogre and try and spawn kill him. He keeps respawning, so yeah, just play smart. Keep killing the wizards and the ogres and input the code, and then you're on to the second boss. Well, I guess the first boss, but second encounter. So this boss is the hardest part of the dungeon in my opinion. This encounter can be very hectic and difficult, and don't fool yourself from thinking it's easy because the Zoetics of the world can one-phase it. That takes a lot of setup and build crafting and things to go right. No doubt Anarchy is great on this boss, as is Bolt Charge, so if you are on a Titan and want to run that strategy, go right ahead. But my strategy will be tailored around a build that is easy replicable on all classes. But before we get into that, I have to talk about a problem. As of the making of this video, when damaging the Shrieker bosses, you can hit crits, but you won't do critical damage. It's just base damage. Bungie has confirmed that this is a bug and they will be fixing it, but yeah, just something to know. My team and I used Sleepers in our contest mode clear, and it worked great. That is because Sleeper hits incredibly hard to the body, much more so than other linear fusion rifles. This means that in the future, Queenbreaker will probably wreck here, as will Whisper of the Worm. And my team and I tested Whisper specifically, and I added up my crit hits that I got on screen versus our wipe screen damage, and it wasn't even close. So I did want to mention these options, as in the future they may be great. But I can't recommend them right now because this bug is not fixed yet, and if Vesper's host is any indication, this may not be fixed until Frontiers, or hell, maybe it won't ever be properly fixed. Velocity is more important than quality, as they say.
That we codified here to shift our mindset is that velocity is more important than position. Like, your position is your game's quality right now. How good is it? What issues does it have?
Anyways, back to the encounter strats. This is why I do not recommend Hunter right now. Prismatic Hunter's best strat would be Celestial Nighthawk for damage, but with the crit bug, it won't hit nearly as hard as a Nova Bomber or T-Crash or Chaos Reach. You could use Arc Hunter like a Liar's Handshake or Assassin's Cowl 1-2 punch, and then use Gathering Storm, and this could be a decent option, but survivability and fast ad clear may be an issue compared to the other two classes. It's not impossible by any means, but thanks to this bug, Hunter will definitely be the slowest. But again, I wanted to mention those strategies because I want this guide to cover all classes. But if that bug gets fixed, then Gifted Conviction with a hot swap to Celestial Goldie would go really hard here. I've also heard reports of Surges and Weaken not working here, but I don't think that's true. Maybe something is going on with Anarchy specifically, but I did a lot of testing in a team, and you can tell that Surges definitely affected our damage. I tested Deathbringer, and it does respectable damage. I also tested Dragon's Breath, and that brings up something interesting. Ignitions and Scorch do not work on this boss, and I'm not sure if Jolt or Volatile do either. I know Zoetic's one-phase strat relies on Volatile, but it doesn't seem to apply consistently at least. And I know the dot damage from Necrotic Grip doesn't work, or Unravel, which is really unfortunate because that's a big reason I chose my build. So with all those theory-crafted scenarios out of the way, what did I actually use? Well, as I said, I didn't use Hunter, but on Warlock I used Necrotic with Parasite and the Airmite Fusion Rifle with Envious Assassin and Controlled Burst. This roll goes extremely hard, and it's great on the Solar Shielded Wizards, and it has good range being a high impact fusion, so it's nice for some additional damage on the Shriekers after you throw your Nova Bomb and shoot your Parasite. And with Particle Reconstruction, it makes it even better, and Particle does work on this boss, at least visually, as does Weaken. So what an optimal phase would look like is tossing out a Void Grenade to weaken the Shrieker thanks to Facet of Dominance, throwing my Arcane Needle to get Radiant, which ideally it would apply Unravel and Poison damage, but I don't think it does. Then we shoot our Parasite and throw our Nova Bomb. This gives us a huge chunk of burst damage, and yes, I do a loadout swap. We save armor charge by having special finisher on our class item, and then before damage I stand on the right side behind cover and switch to my damage loadout, which has triple solar surge. One important piece of advice on the Warlock is always keep at least one Arcane Needle for coming out of damage phase so that you can kill an enemy that may sneak behind you. I failed to do this and I died as a result because I had no way to get my Devour going. Or you can save Transcendence for emergencies, but it's nice to use that for even more damage, and then you use the rest of it to clear out the left side of the room by taking out the additional wizards. So I know I kind of did this out of order and skipped to damage first, but let's talk about the lead up to damage. Most teams like to enter stop into the 3 right wheels and then kill into the far left wheel, which give a long minute and 20-second damage phase. On screen now is what all the symbols do. But as a solo and with the crit bug, there aren't really any good weapons to use for this strategy besides Anarchy, which not everyone has. And Mountaintop pairs perfectly with this as well because of the no crit damage. But in the future, something like a Deconstruct Vorpal weapon could go really hard on a Shrieker. Where with my strategy, I just use a 1-wheel phase, which is about a 13-second damage window. Hence why I use Parasite. On my Titan, I use Insurmountable Skullfort and then swap to Cuirass if I have my supercharged. This is a burst DPS loadout. I also use Glacioclasm with Withering Gaze to weaken the Shrieker. but upon watching my footage back, I don't think it was applying, which is quite weird because my Void Weaken grenade does work. And in our contest run, Twilight Arsenal Weaken was also working. So I'm really not sure what's up with that. So if Withering Gaze isn't working and you just wanted to run a Solar Fusion instead, that may be better. So with the lead up to damage, the start is truly the hardest. On my solo flawless, I got absolutely fucked by RNG. I had to get Overflowing Knowledge twice right off the bat, meaning 3 drops of knowledge so that I could move the wheel to kill. This is a huge problem as it's really hard to kill all 3 wizards and dunk before the Shrieker reads the first wheel. But it's not impossible, as I proved in my solo flawless. You just have to be fast. So if this happens, spawn camp the left wizard and take it out right away, then get to the middle wizard and then finally kill the right, and then dunk your knowledge. With the build setup that I use, it's tight but doable. Like I said, I actually had to do it twice. I even burned my super on the first rotation, which brings me to another point. Because these damage phases are so frequent, you won't always have a super or even armor charges, and that's totally fine. You just have to play your life and stay focused. Not every rotation has to be perfect. The crucial thing is that you dunk kill in the first wheel. Otherwise, this room can get away on you in a hurry. Because it started so chaotic on my solo flawless run, I basically did no damage, and that's fine. And then on the next rotation, I got a second instance of needing 3 knowledge. Sincerely, fuck you, Bungie. But again, I got through it because I knew what to do in the worst case scenario. Why? Because I had practiced. Hopefully in your runs you get a 1 or 2 off the bat, and then it gets drastically less hectic. Because as each phase goes on, more and more knowledge will stack up on the ground from the wizards that you kill. Sometimes you accidentally pick up too many and then have to spin the wheel back around to get it onto kill. But just stay calm and know that it's under control. Another thing I messed up in watching my footage back is when you use T-Crash, you want to T-Crash on the side of the Shriekers so that you can do damage to both. I messed this up a lot and added more phases to my run as a result, but you can learn from my mistakes. I find Warlock is a little easier here personally, as you can cast Nova Bomb from a distance, which helps keep you safer, where T-Crash you have to run to cover, and you have to switch back to Skullfort after damage, so hopefully no adds are around. Where with Warlock you don't have to switch your exotic, so you can take a minute or 2 if you have to switch back to your running loadout, so you're kinda chillin'. You still have to swap back to build armor charge, but even if you don't, it's not as big a deal. So then just rinse and repeat this like 20 times and you'll be done. This strat takes about 20 minutes, but it is so much more fun and engaging than the 20 minutes in the first encounter. But again, I can't stress enough to practice this a few times. Get the rhythm down. When I beat it on my Warlock, I was so locked in, I could have kept going over and over for an hour. You just get in the zone and know exactly what to do. And once things slow down after a few rotations, then you can check the wheel right after damage and gather your symbols and dunk them before enemies even spawn, which is super helpful. If you can quickly dunk it to kill, then it just really calms the encounter down and lets you get some time to breathe. I know it may look hectic in the gameplay, but everything was pretty much under control. Again, you just need a good build and to understand the strategy, and then it works very well. And if the knight from the far left side pushes you unexpectedly or something, feel free to shoot it with Parasite or use your super on it. Again, not every damage phase will be optimal, and that's okay. Just live for another phase. So I'll now show my loadouts for this boss and explain a little about the reasoning for my mod selection and such in case you want to copy them. Alright, couple things off the bat. First, I kind of mentioned Deconstruct and Vorpal. These basically do more damage to vehicles and constructs, both of them, like Vorpal works on Shriekers, Deconstruct works on Shriekers, and then so does Hawkeye Breach Armaments. So right now, because of this crit bug, this weapon isn't very good because snipers rely on crits and you're not getting crit damage, but in the future, this one could be a monster. Also, as I showed in the gameplay, Withering Gaze was not giving me the weaken, but my Void Warlock Grenade was giving me the weaken. So I shouldn't have ran this just because, again, it seems to be bugged. Maybe it's because I had Particle Deconstruction on, I don't know. But anyways, this was not doing any good for me, so I might as well have ran the Eremite because there are solar shielded wizards, and this bursts them down really easily, and I have Envious Assassin. This is craftable. It's from Season of the Witch, so I never really have to reload it. Of course, we have Parasite, like I talked about. I used an Unloved. I had a different one, so I had way more enemies defeated, but I got one I like more, so I deleted that one. Still not my god roll, but it's pretty good. So this was the damage loadout. Obviously, we have Triple Surge. Again, I don't know where that surges aren't working is coming from. Visually, they're working, but maybe it's something in the background. I don't know. Curious to buff our Thunder Crash, of course. When you do loadout swaps, I've made a video on this, but all of these have to be in the exact same order and matching. So that's very important. But basically the key is that we have Thunderclap for Insurmountable Skullfort, and that all of these match our Skullfort build. So when we swap, we don't lose any energy or anything. I have a Strand Loader, except this is my DPS phase, so it doesn't really matter. What I should have had was Solar Dexterity to swap to my Parasite quicker, but it really doesn't matter. And then Time Dilation to extend our Solar Surge. And then I will show the Skullfort build. So like I said, all these fragments are in the exact same place. This is my running build. We have Faceted Protection for survivability. I had Purpose. That was more from the first encounter with Point Contact Cannon Brace, because I had Void. I had Twilight Arsenal, so that would give me Void Overshield. I just chose not to change it, so don't look too far into it. I guess it does grant Bolt Charge, but whatever. Faceted Balance, Sacrifice, and Dawn. So on the off chance we could maybe kill a melee right as damage is starting, we would get a 20% damage boost to Parasite. So that is that build basically. Not much else to talk about. Solar Holster so that Parasite's always reloaded. And then Solar Scavenger so we get more ammo back when we pick up a brick for Parasite. And then Recuperation for a chunk of health. Even though we have Knockout, which gives us health back on melee, anything you can do to improve your survivability in a solo flawless is good. Strand Loader because the hand cannon loads slowly, and 2 heavy-handed, so every melee kill we get will make an orb, but there is a 5-second cooldown when you have 2, only a 1-second cooldown when you have 3, so you could run 3 as well. For more orbs, which means more supers. Double hands on as well, so we're trying to get as many melee kills as we can, because not every phase do we have a super for, but this will allow us to have one for at least every other phase, because you're always clearing so many adds in between. And then this is important. Run Special Finisher. It doesn't have to be Special Finisher. It can be any of these, but this will help you store Armor Charge so that when you swap to Cuirass, then you'll have Armor Charge counting down, and you'll have Solar Weapon Surge. But when you come out of damage, as long as you still have armor charges from the surge, then that timer will stay on. So sometimes it can actually bug you out and you won't be able to store charge until all your armor charges are depleted. That's how that works. So that just kind of is what it is. But it's been a bug ever since like the changes came into the game, the in-game loadouts. So now I will show you my Warlock build. Obviously it's all the same weapons, Eremite, Parasite, and Unloved. And then I had a heavy ammo finder, again Strand Loader, resist mods, Solar Holster again, this time with Absolution, so that I could get ability cooldowns back quicker, and Special Finisher again. And then when I would swap to my damage loadout, it was the same thing with Triple Surge, Time Dilations. See, this time I had Solar Dexterity and Solar Targeting, and that Font of Wisdom. I run really low intellect, so it doesn't last that long, because once I switch back to my running loadout, I'm going to lose that Font of Wisdom, but it helps. Maybe it's the difference between one more Nova Bomb throughout the whole course of the run. So it's going to help you finish in 1 or 2 quicker phases. And then again, all my aspects and fragments match. Lightning Surge is really nice for taking out the enemies. Vortex Grenade with Facet of Dominance. This also allows your Transcendence Grenade to weaken. And then Arcane Needle, like I said, it doesn't really apply the poison to the Shrieker or the Unravel, but it does allow us to get Radiant from a distance. So like I said, I preferred the Warlock build a little bit more, but that's just a preference thing. And then for Hunter, I would run Celestial Nighthawk with Gifted Conversion. So once we have killed the Zoetic Lockset, we have more Traversal. So you go forward and then immediately hang a right. Eventually you come to some adds where you have to kill them to open a door. Kill them and continue on. There are a few ads, but you can mostly skip them. I just try to use the first few to get amplified so that I have damage resistance and then the enemies are less accurate. And then from here we get to the boss room. Before we get into the mechanics, let me show my damage builds and talk about them, as with these builds, to Striker, and we go with Rally Barricade and Storm's Keep. That is going to give us a bunch of Bolt Charge, which is really strong. And then these are just the rest of the fragments that I run. This one's good because you get more Bolt Charge, which means more damage. We have Thunder Crash because again we're swapping to Cuirass. I run a Rufus's Fury. I really like this roll. You want something with a deep magazine for shooting the door open. That door is one spot where you can die, so you want to be very careful. If you're ever slowed or just taking a bunch of damage from enemies, just get away, clear out the enemies, and then go back through the door. But if you have something like this is a 720 RPM auto rifle with a 54 magazine, this is really good. And then if it's enhanced or crafted, you can run heavy ammo finder enhancement, which is really good. And then you run heavy ammo finder, so in between phases you can farm ammo up. Then of course we have Arc Scavenger, and then I just had Arc Holster, but yeah, Arc Scavenger is really good because that's going to get you more ammo. Oops. And then we have Special Finisher again to hold armor charges for our damage phase. I went with triple Arc Reserves because I had no trouble surviving in the boss room. Really the only things that can hang you up are the boss suspending you and then you get shot by a bunch of enemies, so just avoid the boss. The hatchlings, or sorry, the threadlings, when you break the little webs or whatever to unlock the lens so that you can move the symbols, those can deal some damage. So if you're taking damage from enemies and the threadlings, they could be dangerous. But yeah, I didn't really run anything, so I found reserves was better because this will get you through a whole damage phase and it will help you get to your next damage phase quicker because you won't have to farm ammo. Then add a strand loader for my auto rifle and double heavy-handed again, recuperation on the boots. So yeah, that's what I went with. And then again, Withering Gaze. This actually does work on the final boss. I only use it at the start of the damage phase because you're waiting for his shield to break. So you can put down your Storm Keep's Barricade, and then you can pre-aim Glacioclasm. So then right when it breaks, you can shoot. You get a 15% weaken. I'm not sure how long it lasts. It's not super long, but it's still worth it. Also because it will stack Particle Reconstruction. This stacks up to ×5, and those high impact frames shoot 5 bolts. So as long as you land 4, your next shot with Queenbreaker is pretty much going to be hitting max damage. And then Defibrillating Blast is really nice. Stunning a champion grants maximum stacks of bolt charge, triggers an arc bolt that heals you and jolts combatants that it damages. So this will apply jolt and it will be healing us, which is really, really helpful during the boss damage phase. So definitely run those. And then yeah, Queenbreaker is great. Sleeper Simulant I also used. That would be my other pick here. Sleeper is going to be more consistent at range, so hopefully the boss comes forward to you and then you can get your Queenbreaker shots easily. Sleeper is better at range and it's a little more consistent. So Sleeper is going to be an easy, consistent 5 phase, where Queenbreaker has a higher ceiling but a lower floor. If you're missing your crit with Queenbreaker, you're obviously not going to do as good as damage, where Sleeper is very forgiving. So if you hit a body shot, it's not a big deal, but it's also forgiving in that it's super easy to land crits with. The other thing that I don't like about Sleeper is it's not as good when you're picking up ammo. Sometimes you can only get like 1 ammo from a finder brick. I've heard you can maybe double stack scavengers, which is supposed to not be a thing anymore, but apparently it works with Sleeper. I don't know. Haven't tested it myself. But yeah, like I said, I tested many damage strategies in teams and solo, and I would only use one of these 2 linears, especially this season with Particle Reconstruction. Don't overcomplicate it, just use what works. So then I would swap to, I do just want to show this really quick. I did try Thunderlord as well, thinking that could be really good. You don't need Actium War Rig, but I was just doing my testing anyways. Thunderlord, it was maybe pushing close to 3 million damage, where Queenbreaker, even on a bad phase, was like 3.5 million. So Thunderlord, not worth it in my opinion. And then here was my swap. So basically when I would swap, I had double arc targeting. I should have ran triple arc targeting really. And either way, it just helps you land those crits, right? And then arc loader, so that when you do have to reload, it does have rewind rounds, but if you do have to reload, you're going to reload quicker. Triple arc reserves again, triple arc weapon surge, of course, and double time dilation. And then if we go to the other two characters, it's basically the exact same story. The weapons you won't be able to see, but it's all the same weapons. Where is it? So again, just arc scavenger, special finisher, and then when I would swap, I would go to the one with surges. So surges, time dilation, again targeting, loader and dexterity, really good. I should have had dexterity on my Titan, but I didn't. The thing with the Warlock, they actually deal better damage. I go with Nova Bomb. I tried Song of Flame. I didn't like it as much because the damage wasn't as good. Because you can have 3 Arcane Needle melees and a Weaken Grenade. So you get way easier access to like Radiant. Well, I guess Arc Titan doesn't have any access really. You do have your Withering Gaze, but you get access to Radiant with Facet of Dawn and then Weaken with Facet of Dominance. So at the start of your damage phase, you just chuck out a grenade, throw your melee, and you're going to be doing a ton of damage. You can also pop Transcendence, and then that's this grenade is going to weaken as well. So yeah, the Warlock can pump out some insane damage. And then when we go to, and don't forget about Necrotic Grip, applying poison over time as well. And then when we go to Hunter, again, I've kind of neglected Hunter a little bit, but here you'll see the loadout that I like to run. Again, it's my Withering Gaze Fusion, Queenbreaker, and Rufus's Fury, or some type of auto rifle. But then here we've got Marksman, Golden Gun, Withering Blade for the running part, and Grapple Grenade. These are really nice because you can get around really easy. Ascension is great because it gives you Amplified and it jolts all the targets. So again, it's really easy to take out enemies. What I love on Warlock or on Hunter is Stylus Executioner, because you can go invis with ease. So that makes it really easy to read the wheel in the middle, or the dial or whatever. Of course, we have Facet of Dawn to get Radiant, Purpose, Hope, Protection, and Courage. And then same type of thing, just stacking my stuff, except I felt a little squishy on Hunter because Titan has Knockout, Warlock has Devour, Hunter doesn't really have a way to intrinsically get health back, so I was actually running resistances when I was on my Hunter. And then I would swap to Golden Gun, again, time dilation, surges, double solar resist, because that's more what you're dealing with during the boss damage phase, and then strand from his attack, arc loader and dexterity, and I even went with Font of Vigor, and then double arc targeting. Yeah, and then when I would switch, I would actually lose my melee and my grenade, but I would always pop Transcendence. So that way I was able to get multiple smoke bombs. As long as the smoke bomb hits, it's going to weaken and apply Radiant. So that's very strong, but it's hard to use at a distance. But again, if the boss comes up close, then it's going to be much, much easier to land those. So those are the loadouts that I use to clear the final boss on all 3 characters. So now that you know the builds, let's talk about the mechanics. Again, you can read the wheel in the middle and determine the truth or the lie, but for me, I found it quicker to just kill the bat. I can slay out very quickly, so this was honestly faster for me. I like to always just start out by going to the left room, as I find the Strand guy more threatening, and then I would just use my super on him. Then by the time I was done doing the mechanics, I would usually have my super back. So after the Strand guy was dead, we would have a 50-50 chance of having the bat in that same room. If not, I would just go to the other side, kill the bat, and then see what the truth is. Once we know that, we have to light the lie and darken the truth. So just look at the symbols and then write down what you have to light and what you have to darken. I like to type it in my game chat while in the middle underneath area. I just find it the safest, but most corners are fine for doing this. Once you've done that, then just follow the map on screen and go do the mechanic. This map helps a ton, but after all the repetition I've done, I pretty much know where all these are by now. But it definitely helps to have the map. Sometimes you don't even have to do anything in a certain room depending on your RNG. And another tip that I've noticed is I'm pretty sure you will only ever have to do 3 actions. Sometimes it's like lighten 3 and darken 1, but one of those ones you light and darken can be done simultaneously. For instance, if you have to lighten Guardian and darken Hive, you can do that with the same beam. So I just thought I'd throw that in there. If you're ever doing only 2 or 4 mechanics, you've probably done something wrong. Also, I still don't know all the symbols' true names. Like, I still call Savathun Witch Queen and Hive Splinter Cell or Hive Eyes. But as long as you know your personal callout, that's all that really matters. So once you are done everything, just head to the middle and activate. It helps to take out some enemies along the way, as the attendants can slow you when you are heading to DPS, and this can be dangerous because you may get caught in the sunlight. Also, speaking of getting caught up, I guess I should mention that as you're running around doing the mechanics, just keep running by the boss and you should be fine. Sometimes he can suspend you, but if you're just moving quickly and slaying out, he's pretty much a non-issue. Anyways, back to where I was. About 7 seconds after you activate, the room will light up and it will actually fry all the enemies that were out in the open. So now let's talk DPS. I tried a spot up on the doorway at the back of the room, a spot on the right side, but for me the most consistent damage was actually on the left hand side. You have some cover to hide from the boss, which is really nice, but the boss also pushes close, which is actually beneficial for T-Crash and even Nova Bomb. In my solo flawless run, the boss never pushed on one of my phases, so one phase I didn't even get to use my super, and that was the difference between a 4 phase and a 5 phase. And that brings me to another point. In a solo flawless, never push it. I could have tried T-crashing at the end of damage and I probably would have killed the boss, but there was a chance he wouldn't die and then I would be out of cover and I would have got fried by the sun. It's never worth it to try to squeeze out a bit of extra damage at the cost of your life. Remember that. Staying alive is always your priority. I talked about the builds I used for each class, but on Hunter I didn't like using the prismatic grenade as it would be really hard to see the boss and hit its crit. So overall my damage was just worse if I was throwing in the grenade. So just something to consider. And for other damage strategies, I tried Raid and Flux, I tried Lament, and this boss is really goofy with the movement, so don't even bother. I tried Anarchy with an Arc Fusion Rifle, again not great. I used Thunderlord, which I thought would actually cook, and it did decent, but Queenbreaker's just better. I used Sleeper Simulant, I used lots of different things, but by far the best was Queenbreaker, so don't overcomplicate it. 3 Arc Surges, Particle Reconstruction, and Queenbreaker. Warlock gets the added benefit of Arcane Needles for Unravel damage and long Radiant procs, Titan gets Bolt Charge, and Hunter has Celestial, but the smoke bombs are hard to hit at range. But regardless, all 3 classes are quite capable of a 4 phase or a very comfortable 5 phase. And that is going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found it informative, and if you did, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Good luck in getting your solo flawless clears, and if you do and this video helped you, then let me know down in the comments. It always makes me feel good to hear that I helped someone. I think Mactix and ATP have soloed this on a hunter, so if you're just a diehard hunter, then feel free to check out their strats and videos. But as someone who's very comfortable with all 3 classes and has done what I think are the optimal strategies on all 3, I can definitely assure you that it's easier on a Warlock or Titan, at least until second encounter gets fixed. Anyways, that's it from me. I just have a bit of self-promotion left, but thanks for watching this far if you're still here. Good luck with your runs and take care. Hey, if you're still here, then thanks so much for watching to the end. If you like what I do and you want to support me further, then consider becoming a channel member. You'll get your name featured on the end screen, custom badges, and other cool rewards. You can also join my community Discord if that interests you, and if you want to see me stream, be sure to follow me on Twitch at itstizzle7 where I stream semi-regularly. Those are linked in the description. And lastly, don't forget my link in the description to check out Raid Shadow Legends, and thanks to them for sponsoring the video.